Hi, I'm Izzy Malloy and you're watching On the Good Side. Today I'm going to be speaking with Nick Freeman Photography about everything photography, how he got to where he is today, and just what it's all about, really. So,
Right.
Who are you and what exactly do you do?
Hi, my name's Nick Freeman. I'm a photographer based in Northamptonshire. I've been a photographer for over 35 years now, and I've specialised currently in headshots, branding, portraits and editorial photography.
What made you want to do photography?
Well, can I tell you a story?
Of course you can tell me a
Are you
story.
sitting comfortably? Well, when I was about 9, one summer holidays, I was bored as kids get, and my dad handed me the family camera, and he had recently purchased, if you believe my mother, a very expensive camera, which I still have. It's this camera here, and this camera's over 40 years old now, 45 years old now. I still use it. It only shoots film, obviously, but it's great. So I was given the family camera, and my dad said, there you go, son, go and have some fun with that. So we were on holiday, we were in Skegness, and I spent the next 2 hours going around photographing the mods and rockers that were facing off on the prom. I photographed old ladies with their stockings rolled down and heads and hankies on their heads, eating ice creams on the seafront. Kids playing, having fun, just general seaside fun. And I thoroughly enjoyed myself. I don't think at that point either my dad or I thought that's where my career would go. But for the next 10 years, without question, my every waking thought was about cameras and photography. I mean, what's there not to love?
Yeah.
It's a creative thing, and it's got tech involved as well, which is great.
I just love that it started when you were really young as well, because I really started liking media while I was young. I was obsessed with just watching the TV straight up. So that's really cool. What inspires you and what's your muse?
My hero within photography is a sadly now departed Peter Lindbergh, who was accredited as being the creator of the supermodel. His work has just got a natural flair and feel about it that looks like that person was just having their best life on the streets at that time, and he happened to be there with the camera and he captured it. And that's not how it works, and that's not how he shoots, but that's how it feels. And I think to capture that essence is amazing. And if I even once in one picture could capture that essence, I'll be a very happy man.
At first, was it hard to get bookings, and how did it feel when you got your first one?
Okay, well, we wind back a long way again to my first booking. I was 13. It was a family friend, was getting married for the 13th time. I think it was the third, in all honesty, I can't remember. And my mum said, no, I don't think Nicholas would like to do that. And I was like, yeah, I would. I really would. So I shot my first wedding when I was age 13. My dad was terrified I would screw it up, so he insisted on shooting second camera for me on the day. I think we used 3 of my dad's photos and about 150 of mine. So, sorry, Dad.
What did you have to do to get to where you are today? Did you have any struggles or anything?
Business as general, to take away the photography aspect and put it as a business. There are business struggles with whatever you do, and it doesn't matter whether you're whatever genre you're working in, whatever field you're working in. You have to tap into what your local community needs. Now, it might be that you live in an area where, for example, when I lived in Leicester, back then the main fashion industry was hosiery, so that was things like socks and tights and some knitwear as well. Before it was all shipped out abroad to be produced over there. So we would. I worked with a lot of people locally shooting socks. Just it sounds really boring, but it gives you a foundation. So you have to tap into what the local demand is. Locally around here is shoes. I now live in Northamptonshire. I do photograph quite a lot of shoes for various clients. Usually men's shoes, usually high-end leather, but then there are other aspects that come off that because of the leather industry, these bags and everything else. But that's what the local area demands. If you were in Coventry or Birmingham, maybe not quite so much now, but back in the day, it was cars and car parts and cars. So you tap into whatever's local to you. With the advent of social media, I mean, for me in particular, I've found that things like headshots, branding images, people are always wanting content. With the advent of modern mobile phones, the quality of the photos they can take is really good. Still doesn't necessarily give you a good photo or good image, but it gets you part of the way there. You don't need to have the knowledge of photography that you used to have to get a good photo. If you've also got that knowledge, you can still get a good photo. You can get an even better photo. And that's, I think, where the difference comes in. It's trying to find your niche within your sector.
How do you choose like the best photo out of a bunch? Like, what makes a winning photo? If you look at I don't know, perhaps on a normal, for argument, let's use a headshot shoot as an example. I'll perhaps take 100 frames, 100 images during that shoot. I'll go through and there'll be 50% that will just be no good. They'll be, for whatever reason, they're just no good. You'll look at them and the other 50 just look better. Then you'll go through, you start off with that 50. You'll then go through and go, okay, well that one, actually they're really good, but they're very similar. So you pick out the best ones in there. And it's little details like eye contact, it's micro body language, like little smirk, a little bit of a smirk, a smile, or that extra bit of just a little glint in the eye, and it's very subtle details that pull an image. Sometimes you'll get a happy accident where perhaps a light doesn't fire and you get a lighting change that just like, wow, that looks amazing. That really suits that person. It wouldn't necessarily suit the next person you photograph, but it's all about finding those little differences, and then you literally narrow it down. I did a project during COVID where I photographed everyday people in fashion, and I shot them in the studio. And the end game was a portfolio magazine, and I started out with something close to 13,000 images. That was my starting point. I think the end magazine had less than 100 images in, so that was a real hard slog to bring that down to, and it took me weeks as well, because you kind of get, I don't know if you know the saying, snowblind. You're looking at things all the time and they all just look the same after a while. So you have to go away, do something else. And sometimes it's just as simple as making a cup of tea, having a sandwich, whatever it might be. Sometimes you physically need to leave it a couple of weeks and then come back to it and you go, why did I pick that one? Okay. But then, you sort of like go through them again, and you very, very gradually narrow it down. I think I got down to about 400 images, and I put them all into the magazine layout, and I was like, I can't afford to print this magazine. It's going to be too expensive. It was going to be several £100. So I thought, well, okay, so I need to narrow it down. That's fine. I can knock that down to 10 per person that was involved with the shoot, and it was really, really hard. Because sometimes you get, as a photographer as well, you get emotionally attached to images because it was the way it was created was really, difficult to create. The lighting was really hard to produce to get that particular look. Sometimes it was just the spontaneity. The model did something, I did something, and between us we created something that was really out of the ordinary, but it was amazing. And they're the moments I want, and that's what I was talking about with the Peter Lindbergh thing that I mentioned earlier. His work has this spontaneity and this essence of just happened, and it just happened to happen in front of a camera, and that's what I tried to do. But then there's also other things you have to consider as how those images hang together as a sequence, and that is very important. If you're doing anything with still images, it's how they sit together, either as a diptych, a triptych, or as a photo essay.
and trying to create that is it's very hard work when you're looking at your own work, and there is a whole industry around people doing it for you, because you are emotionally attached to your images, and that's a hard thing to detach yourself from.
What's the editing process like?
Well, alluded to what we just talked about there with the starting out with a lot of images. There's an initial cull that gets rid of all the absolute no chances, and then I sort of narrow it down very, very gradually, and over days and weeks if I have the time. A lot of time, if I'm working for a client, I don't have that time, so I might be that I start out with 150 images from their shoot, and I need to deliver 25 as a minimum. I'm then less worried about getting rid of images that I look at them and I go, actually, I quite like that, but I think the client might like that one, but I can give them both. So the sequencing and the culling is something that I do quite quickly in that case. And then when it actually comes to the physical retouching of an image, I try to stay as light as possible. I like people to look the way they look. I don't like to manipulate. I like them to have pores. I like them to, if they've got a scar, they keep that scar because it's part of their makeup. I'll get rid of a stray hair or three. I'll make sure that they're lit properly in the first place, so that they look good and they look dynamic and strong and powerful in their images. Whereas nobody wants somebody to look sort of like scared and a bit weak. You shoot so that your edit is as minimal as possible. That's generally my rule anyway.
What tips would you give to someone who wants to start doing photography but doesn't know where to start?
Okay, if you really don't know where to start, you're probably best not starting a photography business, quite honestly. I know that sounds a bit brutal, but if you want to be a photographer, you want to take photos, keep it as a hobby, keep it as a sideline, don't do it as a business. I spend 80% of my time doing administration, accounting, marketing. I don't spend all my days taking photos. It's a rarity that I spend a full day taking photos, and then I'm very often working to what my client wants. I'm not doing what I would like to do, so I'm almost being a photocopier, almost, because they're usually working to a mood board of some description. Now, that's not to say I don't love what I do. I absolutely love what I do, and I wouldn't change anything. After 35 years, I don't think I could do anything else anymore. If you're set on becoming a photographer and that's what you want to do for a business, I would strongly recommend that people build a portfolio, a strong portfolio, and again, get somebody else to curate it for you. Do not try and curate it yourself, because you have that emotional attachment to your work. And then once you've got that strong portfolio, approach agencies. They will give you an idea of what the right charges are for the type of work that you want to do. I mean, it may be that you really, really love photographing food, and that's brilliant. And if that's your genre and your niche, then go for it. Run with it with a passion, and don't let anyone stop you. If your niche is cars, again, but you have to have a strong portfolio. See what all the pros are already doing. Try and emulate it so that you can have that type of work in your portfolio. For me, my work is a bit more varied because I work in the commercial sector, in the corporate world rather, I should say. So I'm photographing a lot of businessmen, and they're in their environments. So that's not really a portfolio worthy type of subject, really. They're in my portfolio because that's what my clients need to see. But if you don't know where to start with a business, then if you've got the business acumen, the photography is almost a sideline. It's your side hustle, is the photography.
Yeah.
Running the business is the key. And if you can run a business and market it and make it work from a financial point of view, then then go for it, definitely. But if you're really unsure about what to do and you're already in a job, and photography, you love photography, you love taking pictures every night, every weekend you're out taking pictures, great, keep doing it, just enjoy it, because trust me, once it becomes what pays the bills, it's a whole different world.
Who's your like favourite person to like take photos of, or like do you have like a favourite style of photo shoot?
If I could only shoot one type of one type of shoot for the rest of my days, it would be fashion editorial. I love that. I love having freedom to shoot, and in my style, in my way. I love that. That's what I'd love to shoot for the rest of my days. In the real world, there's a lot of far more talented photographers out there doing incredible work. So I found a very local business. I found a really good niche with the headshot market, and I actually really genuinely love shooting headshots. People think I'm mad, but I kind of like having people who initially come in feeling uncomfortable, unsure, unsteady about having photos done. You know, they perhaps have, you know, the boss has sent them or marketing have sent them, and they come in and they stand there and they're stiff and they're uncomfortable, and we spend a bit of time. We have a drink, we have a chat, we talk about posture and how to stand and how I'll guide them through the shoot, and they start to relax a little bit. And then as the shoot goes on and on and on, and most of my shoots are at least a couple of hours long, they come out of it, and at the end of it, oh, that wasn't what I was expecting at all. That was actually quite nice. I enjoyed that. It was a good experience. It wasn't like having my photos taken, because we've all got a preconceived idea of what it's like, and yeah, I'm a little bit different because I've been this side of the camera for a very long time, but to be in front of the camera is still quite uncomfortable. You know, this is quite an uncomfortable moment for me, but I've got my game face on, so we're all good.
So, before you said how much you liked fashion editorial, what made you like fashion editorial? Like, what makes it your favourite?
My favourite genre. I think I like. Yeah, I'm not known for my fashion sense. You know, I'll be the first to admit that. I've no shame. But I like the environment. I like the way we take a model, and she's dressed in a garment, and we style hair to get that matches, that complements, or sometimes absolutely goes completely the other way, juxtaposed completely opposite to the fashion and the makeup, and we just create this whole look that gels together, and then we shoot it. And I'm not talking necessarily about the things you might see in the likes of Vogue or Tala or Elle or any of the other fashion magazines, Vanity Fair. I'm talking about stuff where it's a little bit more free and a bit more relaxed and natural. And again, I refer you to Peter Lindbergh, who really is my idol in terms of that kind of photography. I mean, some people say he's only ever taken one photograph in his life because all his work is the same. I categorically disagree with that, but I see what they're saying. Because of the way he works, it does look like he's just shot the same thing over and over and over again. But you can't shoot the same shot that you would in London, that you would in New York, that you would in Guatemala, that you would in Borneo, you know, wherever, you know, around the world. The light is different, the environment's different, you know, and he worked with what was in front of him, and it was always a collaboration, and that's what I like, is that collaboration between everybody involved with the shoot, and just shooting something that is super relaxed and then comes across as being relaxed. That's the hard thing to create, something that looks like it was just spontaneous.
I love that. And finally, do you have anything exciting coming up soon?
Well, I've got something very. I've got a couple of things. One, I'm a sponsor of a big award coming up for business awards. And then the other thing is, it's a shoot. It's a type of photography I've never done before. Of all the photography I've done, I've never shot sports. Not really. I've done sort of like a bit of amateur rugby and things like that, but I've never shot sport per se, and I'm actually photographing a Tour of Britain cycle race. It's not the Tour of Britain cycle race, I should clarify that. It's a charitable event, and they're doing the tour of the UK, and that's 10 days on the road, which is also something that I haven't done for many years. So I'm really looking forward to that in June.
I love that. Thank you. That's everything.
Pleasure.
So that's everything with Nick. I hope you enjoyed the video and come back for more. I'd like to thank Nick for letting me do this interview, and I've been Izzy Malloy, and you've been watching On the Good Side.